Good morning, guys. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, election day. This bathrobe business, I got the coffee and I got the news. So everything's about the election today. So my video is going to be pretty downplayed, I feel like. I don't usually talk about politics. There have been a few videos where I've kind of edged towards it, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. I try to keep this podcast on business. So that's what I'm going to do today. But because of that, there's not much going on. So let's jump into the first couple of stories. The first one comes out of Canada. Now, usually I try to keep everything localized to the U.S. economy. However, this story does affect the U.S. economy, so that's why I'm going to share it. So major strike starting at ports in Canada. So this is actually similar to the strike we had here in the United States just a couple weeks ago. That strike only lasted a couple weeks. I think it was around 10 days, maybe 14. But this is the beginning of a new strike. So the labor unions in Canada are striking port to port. So from the West Coast, from Montreal to Vermont. Am I sharing the right page? Yeah, I'm sharing the right page. They are on strike. They have pretty high demands. So this kind of gives you an idea of the difference between the United States and Canada. Honestly, I feel like these demands may be unreasonable. So, but maybe it's the big ask, right? You ask for the most and then see what you get out of it. So automation remains a key issue. They're trying to get protections against automation, which is something similar that the U.S. port strikes did as well. But in addition, they're wanting a 19% wage increase, a lump sum payment of $21,000 per foreman, a signing bonus, and retroactive pay up to April 2023. So they want the raises not only to be moving forward, but retroactive as well. This will also include a 15% increase in retirement benefits and a 40% increase in a meal allowance. So that is a big ask. We'll see what they get, and we'll see how long the strike lasts. Generally, from this article that I gathered and what we saw earlier this year with the railway strikes in Canada, they have direct negotiation with the government. So there's a government mediator there, unlike here in the United States. Obviously, here in the United States, the government can step in, but usually doesn't take part in the negotiations. There they do. So this could actually move much quicker than the United States strikes do, but that's left to be seen. Now, how much effect will this have on the U.S. economy? Well, Canada is the U.S.'s largest trading partner, and we get about 14% of our goods and services as far as imports from Canada. So according to U.S. Department of Transportation, rail cross-border trade between Canada and U.S. account for about 14% of total bilateral trade, or $382 billion in just the first half of the year. So it is impactful. It's not a small number, especially with the holidays on the horizon. I don't think it's going to be as impactful as they think, because I don't think their strikes last as long. And again, I think it's a fraction of what's actually coming through our ports. A lot of what actually limits import into our country is a stupid little act that was passed at the beginning of the 20th century called the Jones Act. And the Jones Act says that any ship entering U.S. ports has to be, the ship has to have been built in the U.S., and the crew has to be U.S. citizens. And because of that, we're not able to take as much freight and incoming imports as we would like. Now, a lot of protectionists will say that's a good thing. You can make that argument. It's an inefficient system. We're still taking imports. It just creates an incredibly complex system where sometimes foreign ships will dock at foreign ports. Our ships will move to those ports. The merchandise will be transferred from foreign ships to U.S. ships and then moved over here. So the import-export doesn't change all that much, but what it does is make the system incredibly inefficient. So a lot of these strikes that happen that way usually will affect those fringe things, fringe products that we don't get directly that are necessary. They're the luxuries, they're the extras. So I don't think that this is going to affect the U.S. economy on a grand scale, because anything that is truly vital to the U.S. economy is coming in through U.S. ports and through U.S. ships. But it may affect some prices. You may see some inflationary pressure. So that's the story with that. Next story I'm going to talk about is Boeing. So another strike, but this one has ended. So Boeing machinists end their strike after approval from a labor contract with a 38% raise. Not much to it other than that. The unions have finally come to an agreement, and 44,000 workers are ending their strike and coming back to work today. It is a large number of people. So one of the when I reported job numbers a couple of days ago, the labor departments, they directly addressed the fact that it was the Boeing workers that caused a decline in job numbers. I thought that was kind of BS, but that is something they cited. So 44,000 workers coming back to work is definitely going to bolster the job market and help the economy. Now, with these two stories, even though one of them is foreign, I want to undercut one little point. And it's something I talked on my previous video a couple of days ago. I had a commenter ask me about what I think general trends are in the market. And I talked about how I, like a lot of investors, see that inflation is baked into the next 10 years. It's unavoidable. We're seeing rises in labor due to demographics. We're seeing rises in prices of commodities, in homes, et cetera, et cetera. So ask anyone in the market, even in the bond market, and they see that inflation is baked into the system. That's why the 10-year yield is as high as it is. So it's arguments like this that I think are a powerful motivator as to why that is. Because both of these large unions went on strike and got well, I should say not yet, but the demands are incredibly high. But both of these unions are going on strike and essentially getting what they want. And we've seen that across the board with multiple unions. I think the only union that really didn't get what they wanted was the railway strike here in the United States a couple of years ago. And that was really because it was shut down by the government. The government stepped in and said this strike has to end. But other than that, every time one of these unions goes on strike, they're pretty much getting exactly what they want. And we're seeing wage pressure across the board. That's inflationary. That's powerfully inflationary. That's an inflation that can't be remedied through supply chains. Well, I suppose it could be, but usually not directly. And so that's why I say that inflation is baked into the market. And that's why I say look at insurance rates as to what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So we're going to be getting new insurance numbers with premium renewals here shortly. That's going to be a great estimator of what's going to happen in the next 6 months to the year of the economy, because everyone thinks that insurance is a lagging indicator, but it's actually a leading indicator, because insurances do tons of research to find out where the market is headed. And if they see that payroll numbers are going to be higher, they're going to raise their premium numbers to that as well. So those are inflationary pressures. Don't look at CPI and PPE. Look at these numbers. Look at stuff like this. Look at risings in gold, Bitcoin, housing, etc. Next story I'm going to share with you guys is directly involved with housing. So let me make sure that I'm sharing my screen with you. Okay. So first-time home buyers are older than ever. This shouldn't come as a surprise, but it is still kind of shocking. Just from last year, the average age of the first-time home buyer is 38. That's up from 35. So we're seeing kind of a large increase in the first-time home buyer in a market that is more or less muted because of high interest rates. Even in this scenario, we're seeing that people aren't comfortable or aren't able to buy a home up to the age of 38, and that's a pretty drastic increase in the age. In addition, a large majority of them are over the age of 61. So the median age for a repeat home buyer rose to 61 from 58 last year, another 3-year increase, meaning that someone taking out a 30-year mortgage could be 91 when the loan matures. Now, this is an interesting little facet. This is something I talked about with a commenter the other day as well. We see massive financialization in the housing market. And what I mean by that is back in the day, people used to say, buying a house is a good investment. What that really meant was it's a wise way to spend your money. But people took that and decided, why not turn my house into an investment? Why not pull income and money and make money off of the house? That's obviously the HGTV built an entire industry off of that. We're talking flipping. We're talking about short-term rentals like Airbnb. We're talking about long-term rentals. We're talking about using them as collateral to avoid taxes, sometimes taking out home equity lines. So we've seen massive financialization in the market going back probably 4 or 5 decades now, really starting in the 1980s. And that has continued. So the only reason someone would be 61 and buying a home would be for financialization and for market reasons and not for living reasons. Now we can. I always find it funny when people get mad at boomers. I think each individual just makes decisions based on their own income and their own financial future, and that becomes a market trend. So I never get mad at anyone for doing anything. But I think it's very interesting that this is a trend in the baby boomer demographic, that they are using homes as financial income. And this isn't just baby boomers, but let's not forget the FIRE movement also incorporates stuff like this, and that's all young adults. This loan is going to be maturing long after they are gone. So this is simply a financial play. But so this is why home prices are so sticky and why it's so difficult to bring those down or even stabilize them. Because like any equity, once it becomes a money generating income, you keep trying to push it to make more and more money. This isn't about habitation. This is about making income. But in addition, to make this problem even more compounded, nearly 31% of repeat buyers paid with cash. And when you're paying with cash, you don't really need to worry about interest rates. You don't really need to worry about terms. Now, most of this cash is from paid off homes and equity that's been built up, but still, you are essentially making it less competitive for those that have to go out and seek financing. So this is why the housing market is so complex and why it's not going to get better anytime soon. I also talked about how because of issues like this, even new home building, when they come in, generally it raises the price of existing structures. So, for example, let's say the average median price to purchase a home in America is $500,000. If you're a home builder, you can't actually build for $500,000. Wages are too high, materials are too high, but also furthermore, you need to make a profit off of the build. So you're always coming in higher at what the median is, because if you're a contractor and you want to build something, you're going to be without income while those homes and buildings are being built, right? You only make money after the sale. So let's say it takes 6 months to build a house and you're a contractor, you need to make money. Well, a minimum for you has to be at least about $10,000 a month in income, about $120,000 a year, to make all this worth it, because it's not easy to build a house, to go through all the stress, to go through all the complications, finding subcontractors, dealing with realtors, etc. So $10,000 is the minimum, right? So if you're going to build a house, you're already automatically not building it at the median price of $500,000. You're building it at least $560,000 if it takes you 6 months to build that house, because your revenue is built into it. Your income itself is built into it. Well, what does that do? That automatically has now changed the market to be much higher than what it's supposed to be. And that's before you bring in contractors, building expenses, everything else. So even new builders, when they're going to be coming into these markets, it's going to be inflationary as well, because it's simply unavoidable. It's not possible to build homes for less than what the market price is. And another story I'm going to share with you guys in relation to this is states with the most and least mortgage-free homes. So this kind of underpins that 30%. Now we see that even though there is some concentration of more homes being bought with cash in rural areas, there is a distribution across the board, because even over here in California, we're seeing people buying homes with a good amount of them. It's hard to pull a statistic because this is a 35% meter, but we see that even there in California, there's people buying homes with all cash, and that's a market that is incredibly expensive. So this is a difficult trend. It's not something that's going to get better. It's not going to matter who wins the next election. This is going to be a problem for the next several decades. That's pretty much it. Those are the stories of the day. I actually went longer than I thought, but we kind of went in depth on real estate. So I will see you guys back here tomorrow, where maybe we'll find out who the new president is. So I hope you guys have a productive Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow.